Charlotte Lewis with Share with Charlotte podcast, and I want to say welcome again to another episode of Share with Charlotte, and where emphasis is placed on finding balance in relationships. And I am the creator and host, and I want to say thank you again for tuning in. This particular topic is one that is called "Is Your Voice Creating Conflict or Connection?" And I want to share with you how this whole episode arrived. And I want to give a special thank you to a young lady who's part of my podcast community and by the name of Tiffany. I want to thank her for a comment when I did back in August, "Has your voice been muted?" And one of her comments to me was, but what if you want to have a voice and you want to say the things you need to say it and feel vital in saying, but it only creates conflict and chaos in your relationship with your partner. So what do you do? And she asked if I would speak on that. And so I just want to thank her because I'm always asking for comments, what topic that you might want me to consider in terms of bringing to the forefront. So I just want to thank Tiffany for that and for this particular episode. And that again is your voice creating conflict or connection? But I want to say a special thank to a young lady who has embraced us with her expertise in being a part of this segment. And because her name is Shamary Wickware, and she actually did an episode back in May, which is called Connecting with Your Pain. And she did a phenomenal job. So if you have not yet viewed that particular episode, please do so. She is an expert when it comes to a relationship. She's a relationship coach. She has a master in psychology. She's had years of experience working with couples as well as individuals to empower them in finding a self-discovery of who they are, and how to blend and work together in terms of relationships. She's also the CEO and founder of Her Perspective organization. And I want to just say that I'm just thankful that she embraced herself to be a part of this particular one with us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring her on so that we can hear more about her and we can actually get started with this particular episode. And that is one that we just want to make sure that we also get the best advice that one can give, because she's actually a professional. I'm not the professional, but she's the professional. And we're going to use that in order to help us to move forward. So if you'll give me a minute, we are good to go. Okay. Welcome, Shamary. Thank you for being a part of this particular episode, which is titled, "Is Your Voice Creating Conflict or Is It Creating Connection?" So I've shared a little bit about who you are, what you've done, and even talked about the fact that you were part of an episode that I did back in May, Connecting with Your Pain. And I thank you again for embracing us again with your expertise in this matter. I spoke with you earlier about what this episode was about, and that is, when I did "Has Your Voice Been Muted?" because a lot of time when we do, we find ourselves when we're quiet when we really want to speak up and speak out. And this particular young lady indicated that, but when I do try to have a voice, it only create conflict and create a rift in my relationship with my partner. And so what do I do? So I'm going to put that question to you. What are you, or what can you share with the listeners? Because you're the one with the expert, Shamary.
So
And
first of all,
thank
thank you
you.
for having me. I will say this: conflict is usually deemed as something negative in a relationship. And I think the first thing we have to do as people is to reframe the way we think about it and know that conflict is something that can either connect us closer with someone or sometimes reveal things about ourselves that we haven't thought of or that we need to work on. So, really, the first part is just to know that when you have conflict in a relationship, it does not necessarily mean that your relationship is bad. It does not mean that you did something wrong. It does not mean any of those things. So, when we speak up and it creates conflict, the first thing is not to think that, oh, I shouldn't have said anything, or, oh, it's my fault. If I would have just been silent, this wouldn't have happened. And when we reframe the way we think about it, we can change the way we react to it. So realistically, what you said should be something that means something to you. So if you said something that's important to you, that means something to you, that you want to be addressed or anything of that nature, then it's nothing wrong with saying that. It's nothing wrong with speaking up about those things. That's one. Two, we are also in relationship with someone else. So just because I said something doesn't mean that I can dictate how they receive it or how they interpret it. So it may not be what you said. What you said may have been something that pokes on one of their own issues or something that happened in their past. And maybe their reaction is not the best. But that pretty much has nothing to do with what you said. It's just something that's bringing up, other issues for them. So really just kind of understanding and being able to really communicate effectively with our partner. Like, this is, what's bothering me. And then they may blow up and you're like, okay, this is why I never say what's bothering me, because now we're fighting. But in those situations, we have to understand that it doesn't matter what you said. If they were going to blow up, or if they have anger issues and they don't have emotional maturity, then it's not necessarily what you said. Anyone could have said something. It could be true. It could be right. It could be all of those things, and it could still cause a problem. So really, it's honestly and truly just kind of knowing yourself, knowing your partner, and then being able to come to a point where you both feel heard and you both understand the other person. And it's something that I like to tell people to do is it's a vulnerability thing, which we don't do a lot of times when talking and communicating, but it's basically saying every single thought in your head. And no lie, this is not a good thing all of the time.
Yeah.
But when you're having an argument with someone, or if you are in a committed, intimate relationship with someone and you want to bring up something difficult, then you would just preface it with, hey, I just want to say every single thought in my head. And then they would know what you're talking about, because beforehand you would say, this is, an exercise that we can use and things of that nature. And so they're going to be like, okay, every thought in my head means I'm going to tell you all of the things that get lost in translation. So instead of, like, we'll take something really small. You left your dirty socks on the floor. I've already told you 10 times, don't do that. I hate when you do that. Why are you doing that? Blah, blah, blah. But they continuously doing it. To me, it feels like now it's not even about your dirty socks on the floor. It's the fact that you don't listen to me. You don't value me because I'm having to clean up behind you all the time, which takes out time out of my day and all this other stuff. So when I come to this conversation, I would say, hey, I'm going to tell you every thought. It's just transparent communication, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, okay. And I'm going to say, hey, usually I would start this conversation, hey, you left your dirty socks on the floor again. But now with transparent communication, I'm going to say, hey, I really want to talk to you about something, but I'm super nervous to bring it to you. I'm getting anxiety just thinking about saying it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've already said it before, but I don't know. I don't really know how you're going to respond. All of the things that we usually have going on in our mind that we don't say, I'm going to start saying those things. So then my partner understands she didn't even want to say this to me. She doesn't want to bring this up. She didn't want to have this conversation. It's just as hard for her to bring it up as it is for me to hear it, and all of these things. And we say all of that. And so then that actually can sometimes put your partner at ease to say, okay, they're not just jumping down my throat all the time. I just did one little thing. They're like, okay, I understand it. So that's the thing that that's one technique that I use with some of my clients when we're talking, because we assume that people know how we feel, what we're thinking, what's happening inside of us. And a lot of times they don't. And again, it gets lost in translation because now they're going to assume what we're thinking. And then that may have them react a certain way. So when it comes to your voice, the best thing in communication is to honestly be able to understand yourself. So that way you can communicate that to your partner, even if it seems small, even if it's those things like, I don't know, like every time I come to you, I get a pit in my stomach. It's in my throat. I can't talk. We need to say those things. So that way the other person understands kind of what's going on with us that they can't see, that they can't hear. Instead of just what a lot of us do, we don't say anything. We stop talking. Every time I say this, he blows up. So I'm gonna stop saying it. And eventually it's going to be the end of your relationship. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of us, we think by not saying anything, we're going to have the relationship grow and flourish because I'm not saying these things, but it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It just prolongs the inevitable end of the relationship. So honestly, as cliche as it may sound, really not saying anything will end your relationship faster than saying something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would say when it comes to having your voice and it bringing up conflict. Just look at it. Conflict is good. Conflict can bring you closer to someone. But it's all in how you approach it.
I love how you said, because just listening to you, I mean, good information, Shamary. Great. And my mind was just going as you were speaking, because I know this young lady, she's not the only one who feels that way. Because you're dealing with two imperfect people and everybody come with something. And a lot of time when it comes to communication, a lot of times someone is going to be on the defense, and then you got to try to weed through that. But I know a lot of time also, as I'm listening to you, people have a tendency to hit hard first without, you're saying step into it. Don't hit it, because we want to get our point across, but you're saying, it's kind of like you're massaging it, because then I'm opening that up for you. So I can bring to you what I really want to say, but we hit hard first, and then that creates the friction.
Yeah, there's a visual that I use, which is, think of whatever conversation you're having with someone or that you want to have with someone as a brick. And you can either toss the brick to that person or you can throw the brick at that person.
Yeah.
How would you like to, have someone give you a brick? Would you like them to hand it to you or toss it to you or throw it at you? And basically when you think of your conversations like that, it does kind of help you to see like, okay, yeah, I don't want to toss this brick at someone because I love them. And essentially I want them to catch it as well. Like I want them to get it. Otherwise I wouldn't say it. So that's kind of the visual that I like to put out there. You're either going to toss it or you're going to throw it.
I like that analogy. Well, actually, I really do. Because either way, and if you're tossing it, then you're trying to inflict pain, really. It's not about, and your chances are it's not going to catch it. You just want to hit them, so that's not good either, because that's not even good communication. And so that alone going to create conflict within itself. I love too the fact of when you were just speaking about, just how people are. It's still good to say something, because to not have a voice is much worse than having a voice, even if it creates the conflict. But as you were saying that, I kept thinking people tend to think because I say nothing, I'm creating peace, but you're really not. It's a quiet storm. That brewing in your relationship is not peace, because nothing is being said. It's a quiet storm, and eventually it erupts into a major hurricane, because it's a buildup. It's a buildup. Mm,
So the thing I usually teach about is like your emotions. And
mhm,
that's how like what I go to with all of my clients. That's how we get to the root cause of their issues and things like that. When you are silent, it's nothing wrong with being silent if you don't have anything to say. However, if you are being silent and you really want to say something, or there are things that are really bothering you, or things that are rubbing you the wrong way, and you're not saying anything, then basically what you're doing is you're just tucking that down and tucking that down, and it becomes resentment. Because now the very person that I love, that I'm trying to keep the peace with, I now resent them for something that they don't even know. They don't even know that that
right.
bothers you. They don't
Mhm,
even know that that upset you, or what they did, or
mhm,
how you're feeling and how you're interpreting it. And resentment over a long period of time
yeah.
becomes anger. And
Mhm,
anger, an overwhelming amount of that, becomes rage.
mhm,
And so people always say, oh, you got to watch out for the quiet ones. Why? You got to
mhm,
watch out for them because it's not that nothing is happening.
mhm,
It's just the fact that they're not saying anything. But something is happening to them. They are experiencing this, and then they blow up. Or sometimes instead of exploding, they implode. And basically
mhm,
that just means that within yourself you find yourself sick.
yeah.
You find yourself depressed. You find
Mhm,
yourself with all of these things just because you didn't say what you wanted to say at the time. Um Personally, something that I experienced was when my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia, things of that nature. And she was in her late 80s. So it wasn't super uncommon, but she started to have these episodes, as they call them, where she wouldn't remember certain things, and she would feel like she was right back somewhere 20 years ago or 50
yeah.
years ago. Well, my mom was her caretaker. And my mom would, I mean, I have never seen my mom take care of someone so delicately. Like, I mean, she bathed her, she fed her, she did all these loving things.
Yeah.
My grandmother, it wasn't her fault because she wasn't in her right frame of mind,
Mhm,
but she was so mean and she
mhm,
was so hateful
mhm,
to my mother sometimes.
mhm,
But what was coming out was things that she hadn't said to my mom when my mom was 18 years old. So it was still in there. It
mhm.
was still in there. She pushed it
Wow.
down. She never said a word.
Wow.
My mom and her were the best of friends for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
They're both grown. They spend a lot of
Mhm,
time together. They talk to each other. But as her mind began to lose her cognitive ability, all
mm,
that stuff in there was still there.
mm,
And so what I let people know is you think you're doing someone a favor by not saying anything, but you have no idea when that stuff is going to come out. And
mhm,
it may not be because you want it to. It may just be because you're older and you lose some of your faculties, and now you're spewing things out that someone didn't know. And basically it was just something really small. Like my mom moved away at 18, got
mhm,
married, had some kids, moved to a different, city. My grandmother harbored that, you know, you left me,
yeah.
with your life and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
something my mom didn't even understand. But
Mhm,
that taught me that when you don't say anything, it
mhm.
doesn't go anywhere if
Yeah.
you don't deal with it. If
Mm,
you can deal with it and not say something, that's a little bit different. But if you're thinking not saying anything and just not dealing with it is going to fix it, it will not.
yeah.
It
Mm,
will come up
mm,
eventually. And at
mhm,
that point, you don't even know how the person is going to receive it or anything of that nature, because now it has so much emotion to it. Because now you feel wrong. you felt wrong for years when you could have just felt wrong for a couple hours, you know? So that's really important. It's so important to not only just find your voice, but be able to communicate what's going on with what's going on inside you to the people that are close to you.
I really appreciate that because I was just thinking a lot of time how many people that we know personally that's not even your partner, but it could be family or even friends who bothered by something you did or said or whatever that really just just really created a rift. But for the relationship's sake, I'm just gonna harbor that. I'm just not gonna because I don't want conflict. Yeah, a bad relationship, but really, in fact, you're holding on to something because either
Yeah.
way, it does. It may you can go through this whole acting like nothing changed, but really something really did because you never dealt with it. And I
Absolutely.
appreciate you saying that because things that are really vital and so important to you, it has to have a voice. It has to have a voice. And the person that need to hear is the one that connected to whatever it is need to be said. So for if nothing but for your sake, you know.
Well, yeah, it could be a
Mhm.
situation where you deal
Yeah,
with it on your own
yeah.
because I don't subscribe to the fact that just because I have an issue with you means I need to say it to you.
Hmm.
Sometimes my issue with you could be something that someone else did to me in the past. It's just that you're kind of picking on that scab that I have.
Yeah.
So I feel like in those cases, when you go, within yourself, but this also comes with knowing you have to know yourself in order to heal, in order to
Mhm.
have these conversations and things of that nature. When I go to myself and I'm asking myself those questions of why is this bothering me? Why did this hurt so much? Why is this my reaction type of situation? And it goes back to someone else in the past or something else in the past, then I know it may not be this person in front of me that is doing all of this. So with that being said, I can, do my self-reflection. I can heal, I can write, I can do all these things to kind of heal that and come to it. And then at that point, I can go to that person and say, hey, you were doing this and it really bothered me, but I realized it really wasn't all you. It was really something that I, never dealt with in the past with, my ex, my mom, my whatever. And so please, just know that this is kind of a trigger for me. So when you do this, it kind of makes me feel like this. But I'm working on it. I'm
Hmm.
working on it. I just want to bring it to your attention, or I just kind of want to have that conversation. And how many times are we not having that conversation? That we're just saying, hey, I dealt with it. I don't have to say anything. But this person doesn't know that every
Yeah.
time they're doing
Yeah.
something, it's poking at that, or, in the
Exactly.
process of me healing.
Yeah.
And so even just those conversations, but I feel like it's a red flag, honestly, when you are in an intimate relationship with somebody, and by intimate, I just mean closeness with someone, and you feel like you cannot share your heart, your feelings, and your thoughts with them.
Yeah. We're not creating conflict and chaos and argument, stuff like that. And it's so vital that you feel like in your partner there's a safe space that you can bring
Absolutely.
those things to play because if not, like you were saying before, you will find yourself where you say less. And then from saying less, you end up saying nothing. It's just it's just best not to say because like I said, you're fooling yourself if you truly think that's creating peace in your relationship because it really isn't.
Absolutely. It's
It
a vicious
really,
cycle.
no,
But I'm going to tell you
exactly.
this too.
Yeah.
The realness of it is our romantic partnerships are a mirror to us.
Mhm.
So if I feel like in this particular relationship, I cannot say things, or what I'm saying is not being heard or understood or anything of that nature, then what I tell my clients is that is a surefire way and a surefire sign for you to know that you are not doing that to yourself. You are not listening to yourself. You are not hearing yourself. You're not understanding yourself. So it's coming out between this person, like they don't hear me, they don't listen to me. But I would encourage everyone that feels that way to really take some time and say, okay, in what ways am I not listening to me? In what ways am I not hearing myself? In what ways is this reflecting back to me something within me? Because that's pretty much what our relationships are doing. They're just showing us parts of us that we want to grow and change in. But if we get caught up with that person doesn't listen and that person, then we can sometimes miss the growth within ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing too. If you're being silenced in this relationship, then I can tell you there are parts of you that you're silencing within yourself. And that's pretty much why you probably attracted this person. A lot of times it comes from childhood where we're not really taught to have a voice. I know in some of the newer generations, parents are a little bit different. But in some of the previous generations, in the generation that I grew up in, it was like children were to be seen and not heard.
Exactly.
And that's so detrimental. And it's not to say that there's not a time and a place for that, because there also is a time and a place where a child should be seen and not heard. But what you said earlier about creating the safe space, there should always be a safe space for that child to feel like I can come to my parent and say this, or I can come to my caretaker and say this. I feel okay, being able to say certain things at certain times. So yes, when you tell me to do something, that may not be the time where I can just say, I don't want to do it. But later on, when we're at home, which home should be your safe space, maybe I could say, hey, Mom, I didn't really want to do that earlier, or this is why, or this is what I'm saying. And then that parent can let you know why they said what they said, and you can have that dialogue. But a lot of times that didn't happen. So we were just taught, be quiet, shove it down. You're not allowed to be upset. You're not allowed to be sad about something. If you want to cry, are you crying? Let me give you a reason to cry. Oh, you're upset. Get out of my face. You're ungrateful, whatever. And so that just teaches us, don't say anything. If I love somebody, I can't tell them when they're hurting me. I can't tell them when I'm bothered by something that they're doing. I should be grateful. I shouldn't even be complaining about anything, and that's just not the truth. That is not the truth. That is why a lot of these relationships aren't working, because we do need to say when we're hurt. We do need to say when we don't like something or when something is bothering us. And the other person may or may not need to react. Maybe they do need to change something. Maybe they don't. Maybe you're just venting. It could be anything. But knowing yourself, understanding why you don't want to speak up, understanding, where it comes from. Because sometimes it could be your partner. It could be the fact that you're in an abusive relationship and you do need to exit stage left. Sometimes it's no matter who you're with, you're going to get this because this is just what you've been taught your whole life. Maybe you keep throwing bricks at people and they're getting hurt by being with you. And so they actually need to exit stage left. It's so many things. But the realness is, if we're afraid of having conflict in a relationship, the relationship will not grow. It will not grow. And if it does not grow, it will die, because we're not feeding it anything. And I think that's the biggest thing. But everybody is like, well, I don't want to, I don't want the relationship to end. And you have to honestly ask yourself those questions too. Why don't I want this relationship to end? Does that say something about me? Or is this really an abusive relationship that maybe I should walk away from?
Yeah, I mean, good information again, Shamary. But communication is just so critical in growing a relationship, like you said, but there's no growth if you don't be willing to take that step, even if it create conflict. Because it's just like, I look at it like this. If you always had, well, my partner and I, we never argue, we never this, we never that. And then it's like if you've never had an issue, then your relationship had never even been tested. So conflicts defines really where you are in that relationship, based on how you communicate, how you come out of something, going through and then coming out. Because if you're always trying to tiptoe everything to keep things good, what you define as good, then your relationship, like you said, never grow. And your relationship really just built on a facade. It's not even a honest relationship because nobody's willing to be
Absolutely.
honest. Yeah. Nobody will be honest. So you just want to go around saying how well we get along, but you get along at a cost.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that goes to, I think probably everyone can say we all know that couple who we thought was so amazing. We
Yeah.
thought they were so happy. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden they divorced and we're like,
Yeah.
what happened? They were
Like
perfect.
happy.
Every
They were
time I
always
saw them, they
yeah.
were laughing. They
Yeah.
dressed alike. They
Yeah.
were always together.
Yeah. Always together. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
He adored her. She adored him.
Yeah. Yeah.
We see that and we think like, oh, because I've never seen them fight. Because I've never heard of them fighting.
Mhm.
Because of these things, we assume they're good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're
And
not.
we want to be like that. We want to be like that. And then next thing you know, they're
Yeah.
divorcing, because you just don't know. I mean, you don't know. We're on the outside looking in, but you really just don't know things that hadn't even been addressed or said, or you don't know because the
Absolutely.
divorce came from somewhere. It didn't just all of a
Even
sudden we just
kids,
divorced
like,
him. Yeah.
I ask people, and I think this is something else too. Like, when I'm counseling somebody or coaching someone, I'm gonna ask them, like, well, how did your parents fight, or the grown-ups in your life? Like, how did you see them fighting? How did you see it? And a lot of the time they say, I never saw them fight. I
Mm.
never saw them argue.
Mm.
And you can't always, dictate how someone interprets what's happening
Mm.
around them or
Yeah.
even to them. And I think I'm a parent, so as a parent, of course, you don't want to fight in front of
Right.
your children.
Right. Right.
However, we're doing them a disservice if we do not teach them conflict is
Mhm.
healthy. You will
Yeah.
fight with the people that you
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a knockout, drag out thing,
No.
but you
Mm.
will have some
Mhm.
arguments and
Mhm.
disagreements and things
Yeah.
that you don't like. And if we're
Yeah.
not showing
Mhm.
them that, then the first sign of conflict in their own relationship, guess what they're going to
Mhm.
do?
Yeah.
They're going to hightail it
Yeah.
out of there. They're going to say, oh, this
Exactly.
is not right for me. Maybe I made a mistake,
Mhm.
all of these
Yeah.
things. But it's just because this is something we're not taught. We're not taught
Mhm.
this in school. We're not taught this at home a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Um, Even with, probably if you have siblings, that's probably your earliest conflict. And it's like, well, they did this. And sometimes you have a parent that says, oh, just give it to them. Oh, just be
Yeah.
quiet. Oh,
Exactly.
just,
Yeah. To keep the peace.
and we don't,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and we don't realize we're teaching them that in essence, that's what you're going to do when you grow up. And
Yeah.
it's not healthy,
Mm-mm.
but it's just so unrealistic to
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
that you can be silent and have a good,
Yeah.
productive, strong relationship with someone.
Mhm. I
It just
appreciate that.
doesn't
But
work like
and thanks for bringing up, even how you teach your kids and how you show them as a model within your own home as to what that is. Because even if you're saying your mom is upset with dad or mom upset or dad or whatever, but you see them again come back together. because it's all part of what's healthy. We work through it, now we're back together. But if you never really like to show that, then they really don't understand that we will totally freak out when it comes to conflict and won't know what to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what a lot of them do is shut down or they flee, because they take it to them, it's like such an attack because
Yes.
they hadn't been exposed to what that look like or feel like. And so they really become more on the attack of if it's the worst thing in life could have happened. But it's life.
It
It's not
is.
the
It's
worst thing
like,
in life. It's just life. Yeah.
well, and I think that's a key thing when you're dating
Mm-hmm.
and when you meet someone. I mean, clearly, if you're already in a relationship, you should have this conversation too. But when you're trying to find partnership, you should
Mm-hmm.
ask those questions of, well, how did the grown-ups around you
Mm-hmm.
deal with arguments? When somebody corrected you, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
How are you taught how to deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, again, we're going to interpret it a certain way based on our own experiences. And I'll never forget, I was in a relationship previously, and when he would get mad, I mean, he would just yell and curse and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
And then, like, literally 10 minutes would go by and he would be back to just baby, honey, baby, sweetie. And I'm like, this is not
Yeah.
okay. Are you the same guy that
Yeah.
was just,
That's a little too much. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But the crazy thing is, ironically, is when we got into a counseling situation and I was explaining to the counselor, these are the things that he's doing. So, so effortlessly, she just said, okay, so what do you hear? And he's like, I hear adults having a disagreement. That's how you disagree. My mom and my dad fought like that and it was no thing. And they would yell and scream and curse each other out and then they would be
And
fine.
stay together. And stay together. Yeah.
And so, but for me, who grew up in a household where I didn't see that and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear that, I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, you hate me, I'm not like,
Yeah.
it just did. And
Yeah.
so that's a good thing to know. Just
Yeah.
okay, is
Mm-hmm.
disagreeing, yelling and screaming, is
Mm-hmm.
disagreeing going to your corners, is
Yeah.
disagreeing giving yourself time to, just whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, being able to communicate that so
Mm-hmm.
that way hey, when I bring this up, him, walking away and taking 5 to 10 minutes to
Mm-hmm.
himself doesn't mean that he's gone forever.
Right.
It
Right.
just means
Right.
that's how he deals
Right.
with conflict. And
Mm-hmm.
if I know that and I know he's
Mm-hmm.
coming back to
Right.
talk about this, I don't have to take it personal.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's just kind of knowing your partner, knowing
Mm-hmm.
yourself, being able to articulate these things because communication is verbal as well as
Mm-hmm.
nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm telling you, I love you, whatever, but I'm doing all of these other things
Mm-hmm.
that tell you I don't
You
love
don't
you.
reflect that exactly.
Yeah. Or I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I'm here, but every time you say something to me, I walk out the door,
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
then in essence, I'm showing you that I'm not there for you. Or maybe that's just how I deal with conflict. Maybe I need to
Mm-hmm.
calm down. I need to get by myself. I need to,
Mm-hmm.
regulate and then come back. And if we
Mm-hmm.
know that, we don't have to take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
But if
This is
we
not
don't know
personal.
that,
It's not personal. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. It's not personal. Yeah. Because we all address and deal with conflict and issues differently. But what I need may not be the same thing you need. But the main thing is, can we
Absolutely.
get back to that place of center? And
Hmm.
that really is the key. And so, wow, I mean, Shamir, this really been good. But I do want to address this, just because of a question. I know you expound on it before, but I want to bring it home as to what you want to leave, um, based on the reason even for this particular episode, and that is again, how would you summarize when you do have those? When you feel like there's something that needs, and I know you said before, but I want to be reiterated again. What message can you leave with someone who's struggling with but there's conflict always, there's chaos, blah, blah, blah. Just so there'll be this last feeding that you can give someone who's in that place.
I guess to sum it all up, your voice is something that you control. It is yours. It is yours to protect. It
Mhm.
is yours to understand. It is yours to love and all of those things. However, if you were not taught how to understand it, how to love it, and how to protect it, then I will say that it's probably a sure chance that you are misusing it or it has been misused by someone else. And it is time to take your power back and have your voice because it is a part of something that can create and destroy. Your voice is powerful. And it doesn't mean that I need to voice every single thing, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I need to actually hide every single thing either.
Mm-hmm.
It's about learning yourself, learning where you taught yourself to be silent and be able to fix those parts of you and be able to heal those parts of you. So that way, when you do need to speak up, your voice is right there ready to be used. And maybe sometimes when you do need to be quiet, your voice and you understand, like, hey, I'm not going to say anything in this
Mm-hmm.
particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
But living life, whatever relationship it is, whether it be romantic, platonic, mother daughter, father son, child parent relationship, your voice sometimes is what connects and builds that connection within that relationship. And if you're not using it or you're not using it effectively, then you are damaging the connection that you have. And in a relationship, the last thing we want to do is damage the connection
Mm-hmm.
because that means later on, we don't want to get down the road and figure out later on that the people we thought were very close to us did not feel close to us at all.
Yeah.
Or the people I thought I could count on
Mm-hmm.
are not there. Why? Because they did not feel connected to me because I didn't voice it. Whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, I just did not have a voice. Because if you're not saying the hard things, I would like to challenge to see if you're really saying the soft things too. Because that's another thing. We think about it as, conflict, but am I giving the praise and the love and the connected things that I need to say? Am I giving those things as well? Because silence is silence,
Yeah.
good, bad, and indifferent. If you're
Mm-hmm.
silencing the bad things, I can show you where you're silencing some of the good things. Or if you're silencing only the bad things and you're only giving good things, then it's a false representation of how you feel about that person. Because
Yeah.
now to them, they're like, hey, I'm great. I don't need to work on anything. I don't need to change anything. And then when you do say something or if something does come up, they're like, well, all you did was praise me the whole time. So now it doesn't even feel real.
No, it
So
doesn't. Mm-hmm.
realistically, yeah, your voice is
Yeah.
something that has the power to build or destroy.
Mm.
It can build your relationship and destroy you. It
Mm.
can build you and destroy your relationship.
Mm.
Why not use it to build the connection and destroy the um opportunities of just being able to share? Let's destroy those misconceptions.
Yeah.
Let's destroy our preconceived ideas and notions. Let's destroy those things by speaking up and connecting with the people around us.
Mm. That's good. And also, what you were saying before, it's kind of like massage your way in when you know that partner of yours is going to be in a state of conflict. Don't just, like I said, don't throw the brick at him, but toss the brick. I love that. So, Shamari, good food for thought. I mean, really, that for me too. I'm just telling you, it was just good information, even for me to hear, because we're all a part of this. It's none of us are not connected to this. Nobody, male, female,
Yeah.
don't matter, gender, race, don't matter, age, no difference. We're all connected to how we communicate. And that again, for this particular episode is your voice creating conflict or connection? And Shamira, you good food. I mean, really good food for thought. So I thank you. I mean, hey, and just know that this will not be your last segment because you come with some good stuff. You come with some good
Thank you
stuff.
so much. I'm telling you, I am passionate about all the people I work with and coach and just people in my life because honestly, just what you just said, we're all dealing with this. These are things that I've had to
Yeah.
change, grow,
Yeah.
uproot things in my life,
Mhm.
learn. So I'm sorry, there's no shame
Mm-mm.
in feeling like, oh, I didn't know this, or there's no shame in feeling like I don't do this. We're all human. We're all
Yeah.
living our experience. We
Yeah.
all are still here, which means we can grow. We can still
Yeah.
learn.
Well, I don't know about the one out there listening, but it was very inspiring to me. Very inspiring to me. So I thank you for taking the time out to do this particular episode with me. I really do. Because like I said, you're the one who dealing with when you do couple relationship therapy to individuals. And so I just wanted someone who could really knock it out the ballpark. And you did that. So thank you for that. Any
Thank you
last
so
words
much.
before we
Thank you.
move?
No,
Any last
just
words?
hey, just keep voicing your thoughts, opinions, even if it's on paper. It's okay. If you can get your voice out on paper, do that. If you can voice record yourself instead of talking to the other person, do that. Just start training yourself to have that voice and to use it.
Love it. Okay, for all of my listeners, please visit my website, www.sharewithcharlotte.com. And also check out my other episode on my channel. And I would appreciate you guys if you have not yet viewed the one that was done previously back in May, connecting with your pain that Shamary was I mean, we appreciate you coming on and being a part of that. She generously gave her time. So if you have not listened, please do. And continue to be a part of my community podcast. And I just appreciate you guys for listening in and tuning in. And I just want to say thank you. You like the information that was shared, please make sure you check like, subscribe, and follow. And I just want to say thank you again for being a part of my podcast community. Love you guys, and I'll see you on my next episode. And Shamari, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you. All right. Bye bye.